Hello folks, welcome to el canal channel Jose. Today we got this video about why a compression test is so important to do in your car engine before you start dumping money into it. So for an engine to run well or run properly, it needs three elements. It needs air, fuel, and spark. And also you need timing. But also if you don't have the right compression on the piston, which is the mechanical piston rings and valves sealing, making the chamber to be sealed, and when the explosion happens that pushes the piston down. But if that explosion, instead of pushing the piston down, escapes through the valve or the piston rings on the side, then you're not getting any power buildup, or your car is never gonna run well. So for that, we got these tools that they're not expensive. They're just gauges with adapters for the where the spark plug goes. And what you do, you hook these items to it, and you do a test to each piston, and then you find out which piston has low pressure or compression, and that gives you an idea how healthy your rings and your valves are on these in your engine on your car. So for that, before you can test for spark, you can test for fuel, and you can have the timing right, and then you can have the air going into the engine. But if your compression is not healthy, your engine is not going to run, or it's going to run really poorly, and you're going to be spending money on sensors and other stuff. So today we're going to show you why this test should be done before you start dumping money into your engine, because this is a basic test that is going to tell you a lot about your engine. Just by running this diagnosis, you can have a actual physical view of the compression on each cylinder, and that way you're just not trying to guess that, oh, it might be the compression, it might be this, it might be that. You diagnose the spark, that there's spark to each spark plug. You've diagnosed that there's fuel being injected, and you run that diagnose. But the other cheap test you can do is a compression, so that way you can get rid of that and continue on into the major components or the most expensive components. For this, we're going to show you how we test the compression on this car, and we're going to look at the numbers, and then disregard if the compression is high, then we're going to know that the compression is good. If not, then we know that that's a problem. So for that, let's get started. So we're gonna test the compression on this engine by using a quick connect compression kit test. This we pay about $29 for it. It's not that expensive, but it can save you a lot of headaches and money. So it comes with adapters for the spark plug, depends on the size, and then it comes with the gauge, and then the quick connect. Once you connect the adapter to the cylinder where the spark plug is, you connect the gauge to it, and then you perform your test. So they're not expensive, they're pretty and they're out there, different brands, different styles. So we're gonna be testing the compression on this engine with this kit, and like I said, this can save you a lot of headaches if you run this diagnose on your engine. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to remove our air box intake tube plastic, so we can get to the injector connectors, disconnect them, so that way it doesn't inject fuel into the cylinder while we're doing this diagnose. And that's so we don't want fuel sitting on top of the piston while we're doing this, because that can cause wash down, what it's called. So we're going to be disconnecting the injectors. So now that we have disconnected our fuel injectors from the electrical side, we're gonna disconnect our spark plug wires from the sparks plugs, and remember the sequence, so that way you don't end up with a mess and the car doesn't run at all. It just misfires. So remember where each wire goes. So we disconnect them all, and we take all the spark plugs out, so that way when we're rotating the engine, there's no compression build up, because the car is just gonna rotate, so there's less stress to the engine. So for this engine, we're using a 13/16 socket, an extension, and a ratchet to take the spark plugs out. It might vary, it depends on the angle or the location of the spark plug, so it might be different. So advice is that when you take the spark plugs out, don't hit the tips, don't let it drop or anything, because the gap is gonna be smaller or bigger, so you're gonna have loss of power or no spark at all. So that's one thing, don't let it drop. And you want to put the gauge to get the right gap between these 2 points. And one thing we can tell you is that once you take the spark plug out, you want to do a visual inspection and see what's going on. The spark plug will tell you a lot if there's carbon, there's rust, or what's being done in the tip of the spark plug. That's going to tell you a lot, because if it's dirty and all that, that's going to give you an idea of what can be happening inside a piston or the cylinder. So now that we took one out, we take the other ones out, and be careful, don't drop it. So now that we took all the spark plugs out, we verified that all, or we just give it a visual inspection that they're all clean. So that means that the cylinder is looking okay. So now we continue with the inspection of the diagnosis of compression. Open our test kit, quick connect compression test kit, and this is how it looks. So it comes with a gauge, the quick connect, and it comes with 3 adapters for 3 different spark plug sizes, and it has one side with a quick connect. So we just screw this hose into the cylinder where the spark plug is or used to be, and then we can quick connect this side to it so we can start that diagnosis. We look at the spark plug that we have in the engine, and then we look for the adapter that is the same thread as the spark plug. And you want to do this while the engine is cool, because if this little O-ring will melt if you do the compression test on the engine while it's hot. So you want to let it cool, and then now that we found the right adapter, we thread it into each individually cylinder. We test one, we write down the numbers that we get, and then we continue down that road, and then we write down for each cylinder what was the readings, and then we compare it and see if we get healthy compression or we got poor compression. So for now, we start with cylinder, there's a timing, and we work ourselves down on all 4 cylinders. Grab our compression gauge, and this one has a relief valve right here. So this one is going to read the highest pressure on the compression cylinder, and then it's going to keep it until we come out. If one person is doing this job, you're going to be able to keep that reading on the gauge, and then you can release the pressure with pressing a little button here, which is good because one person can do the job. So there doesn't have to be 2 people, one watching the gauge and see how much it goes up. So anyways, that's a really handy tool, so you can do it by yourself. So we connected. This is a pneumatic connection, industrial fitting, as you can I'm going to show you, as you can see. So all it is that we can quick connect and disconnect while the hose is connected to the engine, to the cylinder. So now we got it ready to test the first cylinder and see how much is the reading. So we're gonna crank the engine, and then we're gonna get a reading in there. So when you're in the cab and you're about to turn the key to test the compression, what you're gonna be doing is that you're gonna you got all the components disconnected, no spark plugs, no injectors connected. So you're gonna turn the key, and what you're gonna do is we recommend to do the engine warm, because all the metals are being worked, so it's not completely cold. But now once you turn the key to get the compression going, you want to push the accelerator, so you open the throttle body and let the air flow through, so it goes into the chamber and it creates a compression. And the compression on the 91 to a 94 Tercel has to be from 142 to 180 psi. If the compression on one cylinder is 15 pounds or less, 15 pounds less than the other pistons, you got some problems going on with that. So it's just to give you an idea. So remember, you gotta fully open the throttle when you are doing the ignition, so you let the flow of air go with no restrictions into the chamber to get the compression readings. So on the piston number 1, we got a compression reading of 155, about 155. And then now there has a little button here that we record a reading, and then we move on to the next piston, and before we do that, we release the pressure. So we know what it is. Now we move on. So on this cylinder, we have 150 pounds of pressure. So that's about 5 pounds difference from the first cylinder. So now we release the pressure and we keep going, and we annotate this pressure as well. So for the third cylinder, we're hitting about 155 psi of compression. So we annotate that number and we keep going for the last cylinder and see what the difference are. So we release the pressure, we move on. This one gave us almost 150, so we're about 147 pounds of pressure on the compression. As we tighten it down, that little adapter, so that was probably leaking right in there. So we're getting close. We got closer reading than the last one. So we got probably have a good cylinder. It's just that our kit wasn't tight right in the spark plug threads. So we take everything off. And well, folks, why is it so important to do a compression test on your engine? Well, there's different things that can a compression tell you. It can tell you how healthy your engine is on each piston, and it can also give you an idea on why your engine is not starting also. But there's three components that needs to be happening for an engine to start. It needs to be air, fuel, and spark, either with a timing and with a compression. The compression is very important because all the other components, but if the compression is really low and you will never get your engine to start, or it'll be a lack of power because there's low compression, so the piston is not taking all that pressure from the explosion and being pushed down, so it rotates the engine. So that's what can cause an engine to run poorly or low power, or can also not start at all. So this compression test is very good to do because it can save you a lot of money before you start investing on sensors and all that other stuff, so you can verify how healthy your engine is on each piston before you start dumping your wallet into the engine with sensors and all this good stuff. Because if there's no compression, you can spend all the money on sensors and anything you want, but if the compression is low, you're never gonna get that engine to run well, even if you spend thousands of dollars into it. So this is a really cheap and efficient way to find out if you can invest more money into the engine, or you want to rebuild it or change the engine, because that's mechanical stuff that is happening to the engine. This is telling you how the components are mechanically creating that compression in there. Valves, piston rings, we're running good numbers for this engine, so now we know how healthy we have this engine on our little car. So all cars different. Some of them might be a higher compression, lower compression. Check with your manufacturer or so you can see what numbers you need to be running and if you're within the range. And we put everything back and we have concluded that the compression test. So we put our spark plugs or wires and connect our injectors, put everything back, and then we are done. So now at this point, what we have done is we have put all the spark plugs back on, the wires on the order that they need to be on, and then we connected our fuel injection electrical side, and then we put our airbox intake tube back in. So at this point, we're gonna make sure that the car runs as it should, and then before we start putting our tools away, so that way we know everything's back on the right way. So the engine is running fine, just like it should. It doesn't hesitate, doesn't vibrate, doesn't shake, it doesn't bog down, so everything's good. So we can put our tools away and then we're done. And well folks, hopefully this video was useful and informative, and by running this diagnosis on your engine, it can bring you, save you a lot of money and headaches, and that way you don't start dumping money into the engine by running a simple test like this. Well, hopefully you like this video, and we'll see you soon with more videos here en el canal de Chano Jose.